In an era ruled by dust rifles and hard choices, a woman's loyalty was often the only thing she truly owned. Eden Cole, the sheriff's daughter, stood as the pride of Redemption Gulch, a frontier town carved from grit law and iron will. But when a brutal storm dragged a dying man to her land, an Apache warrior, sworn enemy of her people, her loyalty faced a trial that would change everything. She chose mercy. A hidden, dangerous mercy that sent ripples across the plains. 3 years later, those ripples returned as a wave. The man she once pulled back from death was no longer a hunted outcast. He had become a ruler of the open land, and he came back to claim something that would tear Eden's world apart. He did not return seeking blood. He returned demanding the woman who had saved his life. This is a story of honor owed, war narrowly averted, and a love that dared to defy a nation. For days, the sky above Redemption Gulch, Colorado, had carried the sickly shade of a healing bruise. The air hung heavy with dust and the sharp metallic promise of a coming storm, visible from the window of her father's modest home at the edge of town. Eden Cole stood watching the clouds mass like an advancing army over the broken spine of the San Juan Mountains. At 19, she carried a quiet resolve shaped by the land itself, calm on the surface, unyielding beneath. Her father, Sheriff Silas Cole, was the law here, a man whose values were as solid as the stone foundations beneath the town. When the first drops struck the tin roof, they sounded like scattered gunfire. Moments later, rain turned savage. Wind screamed through the gulch, ripping at the signs above Eli Boone's store, and the saloon turning the lone dirt street into a rushing vein of mud. This was no gentle rain meant to heal the land. It was a furious squall bent on tearing everything raw. Eden fastened the shutters with practiced hands. She loved her father deeply, yet felt smothered by the strict lines he drew between right and wrong, between civilized and savage. To Silas and to most Gulch settlers, the Apache beyond their borders were nothing more than shadows, stories told to children, and excuses for the rifle always kept within reach. As the storm reached its peak, lightning split the sky, revealing the soaked prairie beyond their land. In that harsh white flash, Eden saw it, a shape crumpled near the cottonwood, marking their boundary. Not an animal, a man. Another flash confirmed it, a body sprawled in the mud, barely alive. Her father's teachings screamed at her to shut the door and forget. It could be a drunk or a trap. But another voice, her own, rose louder. Without hesitating, Eden pulled on a heavy oilskin cloak and slipped out the back door into the storm. Wind stole her breath. Rain lashed her face. She reached the cottonwood boots, sinking deep. The man lay face down, wearing buckskin leggings, his back bare dark hair matted to his skin. Drawing on strength she never knew. She rolled him over. He was Apache. The truth struck her hard. His face was striking even beneath blood and grime, marked with fading war paint. A deep gash split his temple, his chest bruised and cut, but it was the bullet wound in his side that was killing him, dark blood seeping with each shallow breath, fresh. If her father found him, the man would die. If Grant Hale, the ambitious deputy, found him, it would be worse. The town would call it justice. The man's groaned eyes fluttering open. They were dark and tense, filled with pain, deeper than any wound. Eden saw no monster there, only a man fighting to live. His lips moved, but no sound came. In that moment, Eden Cole made a decision that would reshape her life forever. Tonight she would not be the sheriff's daughter. Tonight she would be herself. "Can you stand?" she whispered the wind, tearing the words away. He tried and collapsed, pain twisting his face. He was heavier than he looked, all lean muscle and bone. She couldn't drag him to the house. Too close, too dangerous. Her gaze locked on the old root cellar. Its slanted doors were set into a low rise 100 yards away. Dry, hidden, forgotten. "All right," she murmured. "We're going there." She slipped her arms beneath his, her smaller frame straining under his weight. "You have to help me," she said through clenched teeth, her face close to his. "I can't do this alone. Try." His eyes locked onto hers, a brief spark of understanding cutting through the fog of pain. With a low grunt, he forced his legs to move, moccasins slipping uselessly in the sucking mud. Together they staggered through the downpour, a desperate stumbling march toward hiding. He went down twice, and both times Eden Cole dragged him back upright, her muscles burning. Exhaustion drowned out by pure will. At last the dark shape of the cellar rose before them. Her fingers, numb and shaking, fought the swollen wooden doors until they gave way. Damp, cold earth breathed out at her. She half carried, half lowered him down the narrow steps, guiding his weight into the shadows below. He collapsed onto the dirt floor, breath shallow and uneven. Eden pulled the doors closed above them, sealing out the storm. The thunder faded to a distant growl. In that darkness, surrounded by earth, blood, and the fragile sound of a man dying, she understood with chilling clarity that nothing in Redemption Gulch would ever be the same. For the next 9 days, the cellar became Eden's hidden world. By daylight, she was the sheriff's daughter again, calm-faced, steady-handed, betraying none of the chaos inside her. She fed the chickens, stitched Silas Cole's shirts, and exchanged polite words at Eli Boone's store, all while part of her mind stayed buried underground. At night, she became something else entirely. Once her father's snores filled the house, she slipped out with a lantern, stolen supplies, and a knot of fear in her chest. She took bandages from her sewing basket, whiskey from her father's private bottle to clean wounds, and a small knife heated red in the kitchen fire. For 2 days, her patient drifted in and out of awareness. Fever racked him, leaving him shaking, muttering in a tongue she couldn't understand, words flowing like stones in a fast river. She cleaned the bullet wound as carefully as she could, nausea twisting her gut. She had watched her father sew up drunken cowboys before, but this was different. This was forbidden. This was intimate. She tipped water between his cracked lips and cooled his burning skin with damp cloths. On the 3rd night, the fever finally broke. She was changing the bandage at his side when his eyes opened and stayed open. Clear. Sharp. Fixed on her with unsettling intensity. He said nothing, but his stare spoke of pain, suspicion, and something she couldn't yet name. "I'm not going to hurt you," Eden whispered, her voice sounding too loud in the tight space. "My name is Eden Cole." He stayed silent, jaw clenched. Her greatest fear was her father. Close behind it stood Grant Hale, the deputy. Grant had been courting her for nearly a year, proper, confident, possessive. He was admired, trusted, and widely seen as the right match even by Silas. But Eden sensed a chill beneath his charm, an ambition that clung too tightly. He rode patrol with her father often, and his questions about nearby Apache bands carried an edge that made her uneasy. Twice Grant came dangerously close to uncovering her secret. The first time he arrived just as she was slipping back inside at dawn. She barely reached the kitchen before his knock sounded. "Eden," he said, smiling without warmth. "You're up early. Your father and I are riding toward Northridge, reports of an Apache hunting party crossing too close." She forced steadiness into her voice. "Just chores, Grant. Be careful." The second time was far worse. She was in the cellar, tending the wounded man, when boots thudded overhead. She killed the lantern instantly, plunging them into pitch black. Her hand clamped around his arm, a silent warning. Above them, voices echoed her father's, then Grant's. "Silas, you sure you checked this old cellar?" Grant asked, suspicion sharp in his tone. "If one of them was hit, this is where he'd crawl to die." "It's just for potatoes," Silas replied, tired. "Hasn't been opened since last winter." Eden barely breathed, fingers digging into the warrior's arm. He was stiff beside her, every muscle coiled, weak but not helpless, a trapped predator. The cellar doors rattled. Someone tested the lock. Her heart slammed, but the rusted metal held. "See," Silas said. "Rusted shut. Let's check the barn. No one's hiding there. Footsteps faded. Only then did Eden allow herself to breathe. Eden didn't breathe again until she was certain they were gone. In the pitch dark, she felt the warrior's hands settle over hers, steady, restrained, unexpectedly, gentle. It wasn't romance. It was recognition. A shared breath after terror, a quiet agreement, sealed without words. After that night, something between them shifted. He began to speak, his voice rough from disuse. His English was fractured, picked up from traitors and broken promises, but they found their way through it. He told her his name was Akeo. In his language, it meant eagle. He never explained why he had been alone or how he'd been shot, and Eden never pressed. Some truths were too sharp to touch. Silence lay between them like a canyon, yet they bridged it with low voices and stolen minutes. He spoke of the open plains of buffalo that shook the ground when they ran, of a sky that never ended. He spoke of his people not as the monsters from her father's warnings, but as a nation rooted deep in the land, bound to what they called Mother Earth. Eden told him about Redemption Gulch, about a life hemmed in by expectations. She told him she dreamed of seeing the ocean someday, and how she often felt like a bird trapped inside a beautiful cage. One night, while she was rewrapping the wound at his side, she noticed a small, intricate tattoo etched along his shoulder. When her fingers brushed it, the sensation hit them both like lightning. He flinched not from pain, but from the touch. Their eyes locked, and the cramped cellar filled with something new. It was no longer fear, no longer suspicion. It was awareness. Slowly, carefully, Akeo lifted his hand and traced the line of her jaw with calloused fingers. No man had ever touched Eden with such reverence. Grant Hale's touch had always been claiming. Her father's had been protective. This was neither. This was seeing. "You have the spirit of a prairie falcon," he murmured, choosing his words with care. "Fierce, free, even in a cage." In that instant, Eden understood how deep the danger truly ran. Hiding an enemy was one thing. Loving him was another entirely. It was treason of the heart, and there would be no forgiveness for it. On the 9th night, Akeo told her he was strong enough to leave. The thought of the cellar without him, of the silence he would leave behind, cut deeper than any fear she'd known. The night he chose to go was moonless, the sky wrapped in heavy black velvet. He was still thin, still healing, but the fever was gone and the wound had begun to scar. Purpose hardened his gaze. His time in darkness had ended. He stood before her, wearing the spare clothes she'd scavenged, a plain shirt and trousers that didn't quite fit his lean frame. A disguise meant to let him vanish. "I must go," he said quietly. The words landed heavy finale. Eden nodded, her throat too tight to answer. She handed him a small bundle bread, a canteen, the last of her father's jerky. It felt painfully insufficient. "Where will you go?" she asked at last. "North. To my people." He looked at her, then, eyes catching the faint lantern glow. "You gave me my life, Eden Cole. An Apache warrior does not forget. My life is bound to yours now. There is no debt," she whispered, shaking her head. "I only did what was right." "What is right for you would mean death if my people knew," he replied, unwavering. "Still, you were brave. Braver than any warrior Kimiaro I have known." He reached out, not to touch her face, but to lift the silver locket resting against her chest, her mother's. He held it briefly, thumb brushing the cool metal, then let it fall back. "When I see this sky again," he said softly, gesturing upward, "I will remember the one star that shone for me in the dark." He turned toward the steps, and panic surged through Eden. This was the moment. He would walk out and become a ghost, an untold story she'd carry alone. "Akeo," she called, her voice breaking. He paused, his back still to her. "Will I ever see you again?" He was silent for a long beat. Then he glanced over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. "The eagle returns to the place where it was given shelter," he said. "You can count on it." And then he was gone, slipping up the steps, dissolving into the night like smoke. Eden stood alone in the empty cellar, the scent of earth and whiskey and him lingering in the air. She pressed the locket to her chest, its cold weight grounding her, and for the first time since she had found him, she let herself cry. Life in Redemption Gulch soon slid back into its familiar routine. But for Eden, nothing was the same. The town felt tighter, smaller, and the prejudice louder than ever. Eden now looked at the world with altered sight eyes sharpened by fire. She noticed the casual cruelty, the easy arrogance woven into her own people's habits. Grant Hale grew more relentless in his courtship. He brought her flowers picked from the patch beside the church and praised her needlework with practiced charm. Yet his gaze tracked her wherever she moved and his questions edged sharper. "That old cellar lock looks like it's been messed with," he said one afternoon as they sat on her porch. "Strange. Probably kids." Eden felt cold creep through her veins. "I hadn't noticed," she replied, her voice smooth, unreadable. "There's talk," he went on, leaning closer as if sharing a confidence. "Caleb Rudd swears he saw a shadow near your land the night of that storm. We figured it might have been one of the Apache from that hunting party we ran off." He paused, watching her. "You remember the little scuffle we had? Think one of them was wounded, never found the body." Her heart thundered, but she met his eyes without flinching. "I'm sure it was just the wind, Grant. The prairie plays tricks." He smiled, a thin, predatory curve. "Of course. The wind." Eden knew then, with a sickening certainty, that he didn't believe her. He suspected. Grant Hale was a hunter, and he had caught a scent. The secret she carried was no longer a memory. It was a threat, a loaded gun aimed straight at her heart. Akeo was gone, yet his presence lingered like a shadow stretching from the plains, ready to swallow her whole. 3 years slipped by. Seasons rolled over the land, spring's pale green summers, scorched gold winters, hard white. For Eden, they were years of quiet desperation. The memory of Akeo, which she had expected to dull, only sharpened a constant ache beneath her skin. Beyond the settlements, whispers hardened into legend. Travelers and frightened settlers spoke of a new Apache leader, a brilliant, merciless war chief uniting scattered bands. They said he moved like a ghost, striking patrols and encroaching outposts with ruthless precision. They called him Akeo White Feather, for the single pale plume braided into his hair. Eden knew without doubt that it was him. The wounded man she had hidden in a cellar had risen into a king. In Redemption Gulch, life closed tighter around her. Silas Cole was aging, his shoulders bowed beneath the badge. His eyesight dimmed, and more of the town's safety fell into his deputy's hands. Grant Hale was no longer merely a deputy. Through shrewd deals and ruthless foreclosures, he had become one of the richest men in the territory. Power fed his ambition. He formally asked for Eden's hand. Her father, believing it would secure both family and town, accepted on her behalf. Eden was now engaged to the man she trusted least, the same cold-eyed suitor who had questioned her 3 years earlier. The wedding was set for late summer. Her cage was no longer a feeling. It had a date. She felt herself fading, the girl who had once defied her world, dissolving beneath duty and expectation. She would become Mrs. Hale, the wife of a powerful man, her days measured by church socials and quiet evenings. The prairie falcon Akeo had seen in her was being tamed, its wings clipped. One blistering July afternoon, Eden stood in the general store when Eli Boone, red-faced and shaken, spoke with 2 terrified homesteaders. "He came at dawn," the man said, voice trembling. "Rode right up to our fence, him and maybe 50 riders. Just sat there watching." "Who?" Martha Boone asked, hands fluttering. "Akeo," the woman whispered. "The White Feather. He didn't burn us out. Didn't even draw a weapon. He only asked one thing." Eden's hand froze over a bolt of calico. "What did he ask?" Eli pressed. "He asked the name of our town. When we told him it was Redemption Gulch, he smiled. The man swallowed. It wasn't a friendly smile. Then he turned north, the woman added. Said he was coming to collect an old debt. The room tilted. An old debt. The words echoed across 3 years of silence. The eagle returns to the place it was given shelter. Eden knew it then. Akeo was coming back. But why now? And what did he mean by collecting a debt? Surely it couldn't be for her. It had to be something else, something far darker. The news tore through Redemption Gulch like wildfire. Fear settled thick and suffocating. Men scrubbed and loaded rifles. Windows were boarded. Doors were barred. Silas Cole called for a town watch and placed Grant Hale in charge of the defenses. Grant seemed almost alive under the threat, a dark spark burning in his eyes. At a packed meeting in the saloon, he didn't bother lowering his voice. This is what I've been warning you about, Silas, he said. These Apache understand only one thing, force. We'll give them a welcome they won't forget. His gaze cut straight to Eden Cole standing near the back. Don't worry, Eden, he added loud enough for all to hear. I'll keep you safe. No harm will come to my future wife. The words didn't comfort her. They branded her. A public claim. That night, unable to sleep, Eden opened an old trunk of her mother's belongings. At the bottom, wrapped in faded silk, lay a hand-drawn map. It showed their land and the surrounding ravines in careful detail, her mother's work, precise and thoughtful. As Eden traced the familiar lines, she noticed something she never had before. Near the ravine where Grant had claimed his scuffle with the Apache 3 years earlier, there was a faint pencil note. SB target practice. Reports of unprovoked fire. The word struck her hard. Unprovoked. It hadn't been a scuffle. It had been an ambush. Grant hadn't defended himself. He had hunted. He had shot Akeo for cruelty or sport, then fed the town a lie they swallowed whole. Akeo wasn't returning for gratitude. He was returning for blood, and Grant Hale was the man who owed it. The threat was no longer distant. It was personal, and Eden stood at its center, the unwilling prize of a war born from her fiancé's lie. The storm was no longer waiting beyond the horizon. Dawn broke, but the sun vanished, not behind clouds but behind a silent line of riders cresting the eastern ridge. They sat motionless on horseback, black shapes against the pale morning, 50 at least, maybe 100. Lances tipped with white feathers stirred in the breeze. Rifle barrels glinted across their laps. No cries, no drums. The silence pressed harder than gunfire. At their center, astride a striking black and white pinto, sat a man who commanded the field without moving. Even at a distance, Eden knew him. Akeo. He wore simple buckskins, yet carried the weight of a ruler. A single white feather was braided into his dark hair. Panic exploded through Redemption Gulch. Men rushed to positions behind wagons and barrels. Women pulled crying children into the church, its steeple standing alone in defiance of the riders above. Eden stood on the porch of the sheriff's office beside her father. Silas gripped his Winchester face, set in iron resolve, though she saw the tremor in his hands. An old man facing a young man's war. Grant Hale stalked the line, barking orders, his face flushed with fear and thrill. "We'll send them back to hell," he shouted. But the riders did not charge. They waited. The pressure of their presence crushed the town's nerve. After a long, unbearable stretch, one rider broke from the line and descended slowly. He carried no weapon, only a tall staff dressed with white feathers. He halted 100 yards from the barricade. "I bring words from Akeo, chief of the Apache," the man called, his voice carrying clear in the morning air. Silas stepped forward. "I am the law here. Speak." "Akeo does not wish the blood of your women or children," the messenger said. "He has no quarrel with the Gulch settlers. His claim is against one man." A ripple of unease passed through the defenders. "He demands you surrender the man who hides behind your walls," the messenger continued, voice rising. The man who ambushed his hunting party 3 winters ago. The man with a serpent's tongue and a coward's heart, the messenger declared. He demands Grant Hale. A sharp gasp rippled through the Gulch settlers. Every head turned. Grant's face drained of color beneath his sunburn. "It's a lie," he stammered. "They attacked us. I was defending myself." Akeo will judge that, the messenger replied evenly. "Surrender Hale to Apache. Justice and the riders will leave in peace." He paused, letting the words sink in. But that is only the first term. A chill climbed Eden's spine. The second term is his claim. The messenger continued, his gaze sweeping the barricades until it seemed to fix on Eden herself. 3 winters ago, a woman of your town saved his life. She showed him honor when none was given. He bound his life to hers. Now he comes to claim that bond. He demands the sheriff's daughter, Eden Cole. She will not be a captive. She will be his wife. Murmurs surged. Eden's breath vanished. She will be honored above all others, a queen among his people. Give him the coward. Give him his queen. Your town will see another sunrise. Refuse the messenger. Finished voice cold, and this gulch will be your grave. The world narrowed for Eden. A queen. The demand was impossible, and ownership declared before everyone. Faces turned to her, horror, pity, and a dawning calculation. One woman and a liar weighed against the lives of all. Never Silas Cole roared, raising his rifle, fury shaking him. "You will not have my daughter." Grant seized the moment. You hear that, he shouted to the crowd. He doesn't want justice, he wants our women. He's a savage. Are we men, or will we trade our souls for a false peace? He stepped to Eden and clamped her arm iron hard. "Don't worry," he hissed near her ear. "I won't let him have you." The grip wasn't protective. It was possessive. He wasn't saving her, he was claiming her. The messenger Nakoa sat unmoved on his horse. "You have until sunset," he called. "At sunset, the eagle will receive what is due, or he will descend. Choose." With that, he wheeled his mount and rode back to the ridge, rejoining the silent line. The ultimatum shattered what unity remained. Arguments flared. Some rallied to the sheriff, pride blazing. Others, fear etched deep, stared at Grant with suspicion, and at Eden with a new, terrible measure. She was no longer just the sheriff's daughter. She was the price. Eden stood, trapped between forces that would crush her. Behind her, Grant's lie and a town ready to bargain her away. Before her, a man who claimed honor, yet ringed her home with riders and demanded her as spoils. He hadn't come to rescue. He had come to claim. As the sun crawled across the sky, Eden knew her choice wasn't between love and duty, but between 2 kinds of ruin. The afternoon heat pressed down, baking the air until it felt solid. Redemption Gulch became a prison of whispers and sidelong looks. Eden drifted through her home like a ghost, the center of every hushed debate. Silas locked himself in his office, torn between a father's fury and a lawman's burden. Could he doom the town to save his child, Grant? Meanwhile tightened his grip. He played the savior, prowling the defenses, murmuring poison. He wants to make her his savage queen, he sneered to a knot of men. You know what that means. He'll use her and throw her away. We won't hand a decent Christian woman to that fate. Eden found him near the well where she'd gone to breathe. His smile was gone, replaced by resolve. "It's time," he said, low and urgent. "Eden, I've got 2 horses saddled behind the smithy," Grant Hale said, voice urgent. "We slip out through the back canyon while everyone's watching the ridge. We ride hard for Fort Collins. We marry there. We'll be safe." Eden stared at him. "Run," she said quietly. "You want to abandon these people, abandon my father." "Your father is a sentimental old fool," Grant snapped, composure cracking at last. "He'll get everyone killed for his pride. This is the only way." "For us," Eden finished. The truth landed with brutal clarity. He didn't care about the town. He cared about saving himself, and keeping his prize. He was the coward Akeo had named. No, Eden said, steady. I'm not going anywhere with you. His face darkened. He seized her arm, fingers digging in the same possessive grip. You don't have a choice. You're my betrothed. You'll do as I say. It was an ambush, Eden said, eyes locked on his. 3 years ago you shot him without provocation. My mother saw you practicing out there. Grant's face slackened, then twisted. That crazy old woman. What does it matter? He was a savage on my land. So you lied, Eden said, pieces snapping together. You lied to my father. You lied to this town. This is your fault. All of it. He would have died if it wasn't for you. Grant hissed. You brought this curse on us with your bleeding heart. Don't worry. I'll fix it. I'll fix you. He dragged her toward the alley. But Eden was no longer the girl who hid in shadows. 3 years of anger and the fire of Akeo's memory had forged her. She drove her heel down on his instep. He yelped, grip loosening for a heartbeat. It was enough. Eden tore free and ran not away, but straight to the sheriff's office. She burst inside. Father Grant lied. He ambushed Akeo. This is his doing. Silas Cole looked up worn and shaken. Before he could answer, Grant filled the doorway. Rage blazing. She's hysterical, Silas. Fear's got to her. Silas's gaze shifted from Grant's wild eyes to his daughter's unflinching resolve. The doubt gnawing at him for 3 years hardened into a terrible certainty. The town clock tolled. Sunset. A cry rose from the barricades. On the ridge, the line of riders began to move, not charging but flowing down the slope like a slow, unstoppable river. It's over. Grant breathed, face ashen. He drew his pistol. He won't have you. He lunged for Eden, intent on using her as a shield. Silas was faster. He stepped between them, pistol leveled at his deputy's chest. It's over for you, Grant. In that instant, Eden knew what she had to do. This wasn't her father's choice. Not Grant's. Not even Akeo's. It was hers. Ignoring Silas's pleas, she walked out into the dusty street. The Gulch settlers stared as if she were a ghost. Eden didn't look at them. Her eyes stayed on the advancing riders. She walked forward alone, steps measured and calm. A calico dress against the heart of a war. The Apache riders slowed horses, snorting, then parted to make a path. At the end of it, astride his pinto, waited Akeo. He watched her come, face carved from stone. She stopped 20 feet away. The setting sun threw her shadow long behind her. You came back, she said, her voice carrying in the sudden hush. I told you I would, he replied, deeper, harder than she remembered. You laid siege to my home, Eden said, chin high. You threaten my people. You demand me like a trophy. Eden Cole said, her voice steady. That is not the man I saved. A flicker pain, perhaps regret, passed over Akeo's face. The man you saved was dying, he replied. The man who returned is a chief. A chief must protect his people and answer dishonor. Grant Hale tried to murder me, he went on. He must face that, and me. Eden challenged, stepping closer. Am I part of that vengeance? Am I something to be won? You are the debt I came to honor, Akeo, said, his tone softening. In my world, a life saved binds lives together. I would give you honor, freedom on the plains. I would make you a queen. I am not a queen. Eden shot back, taking another step. And I will not be taken by you or by him. She glanced toward the town. I will come freely, but my price is peace. Not for me, for them, for my father. She met his gaze, the prairie falcon fully unbound. Swear to me. Swear no harm will come to this town or to Silas Cole. Swear it, and I will go with you. A shot cracked from behind the barricade. Grant Hale, in a last vicious gamble, had fired at Akeo. The bullet went wide. In an instant, a warrior had an arrow drawn on Grant's chest. No, Eden cried. Akeo lifted a hand, the bow lowered. He looked from Eden's fierce, pleading face to Grant's pitiful figure as Silas and others wrenched the weapon from him. Akeo dismounted and walked until he stood before Eden, taller than she remembered, hardened into something formidable by land she had only ever watched from a window. "The man who lies and shoots from shadows is not worth the life of one of my warriors," Akeo said, eyes locked with hers. "He can rot in his cowardice. Your people will be spared. I give you my word." He extended his hand. It was not a command. It was an invitation. Behind her lay the stunned hush of the town. Before her a future of endless sky and frightening freedom. Cage or wilderness. The choice was hers. Slowly, deliberately, Eden Cole raised her hand and placed it in his. Power shifted as swiftly and brutally as a prairie squall. In the street, Grant Hale stood disarmed disbelief, frozen on his face, his final gamble lost. Silas Cole features set like stone tore the badge from Grant's chest, the rip of fabric a final verdict. "Grant Hale," Silas said, voice stripped of warmth, "you are under arrest for attempted murder and for inciting conflict under false pretenses that endangered this town." The Gulch settlers, moments earlier ready to follow Grant, now regarded him with cold contempt. Lied to, used, brought to the edge by his ambition. As Silas marched him to the cell he once ruled, no one spoke for him. They turned away together, a silence harsher than iron bars. With the threat ended, a deeper truth settled over Redemption Gulch. Eden stood beside Akeo, an invisible line drawn between her past and her future. Saying goodbye to her father tore at her. At the town's edge, the riders waited, at a respectful distance, feathered lances like a quiet forest. "I don't understand this, Eden," Silas said, grief thickening his voice. "This isn't our world. You'll be alone." "I was more alone in my own home than I will ever be with him," she answered, soft but sure. She took his trembling, calloused hands. "You taught me to be strong, to do what's right, not what's easy. This is my way. It's the only path to peace." She squeezed his hands. "Maybe there's a world where we don't have to be enemies. Akeo keeps his word. We must keep ours." From his saddlebag, Silas drew a small worn leather Bible pages, softened by her mother's and grandmother's hands. "Take this," he choked, "so you remember where you came from. So you remember grace." Eden accepted it, the familiar weight, a painful comfort. "I will never forget," she whispered. "Either." Silas Cole looked past Eden, his gaze locking with Akeo. The Apache chief met the old lawman's stare, not with a victor's pride, but with the grave calm of a vow being made. He gave a brief, rigid nod. It was an acknowledgement, a promise passing between two leaders, between two fathers, that the woman standing between them would be protected. Akeo brought Eden a gentle bay mare. As she swung into the saddle, a deep finality settled over her. She was leaving the only life she had ever known. She did not look back. The town with its straight streets and silent judgments fell away behind her, dissolving into heat and dust. Ahead, the world opened wide, a rolling sea of grass, beneath a sky so vast it felt like the true roof of the earth. The journey to Akeo's camp took 3 days, and on that road they found each other again, not as healer and wounded, but as a man and a woman. The first day passed in weighted silence, the enormity of what they had done settling around them. But that night, by the fire beneath stars so bright, they seemed to hum, the walls began to fall. Akeo spoke of his rise, of the hard work of uniting scattered feuding Apache bands against a common threat. He spoke of the burden of leadership, of sending men to die, of the ghost that rode with him in quiet hours. "When I lay healing in your cellar," he said, voice a low rumble, "I had a vision. Wakantanka showed me a falcon and an eagle flying together, not rivals, but one. They brought rain that ended a great fire. I did not understand then, but when I saw you walk out to meet me, your spirit brighter than the setting sun, I knew. You were the falcon." Eden told him of the hollow quiet after he left of her engagement to Grant Hale, of feeling her own spirit slowly tamed and caged. "You saw a falcon," she said with a sad smile, "but its wings were being clipped one feather at a time. In a way, your return set me free." When they reached the main camp, nestled in a valley, carved by the Powder River, Eden felt the pulse of a living city. Hundreds of painted teepees rose against the sky. Wood smoke, roasting meat, and curing hides filled the air. Children and dogs ran freely. Women's voices mingled with the nickering of countless horses. It was vibrant, alive. Their arrival brought everything to a halt, all eyes fixed on Eden, the white woman, riding beside their chief. The looks were not welcoming curiosity, edged with suspicion and open hostility. To them, she bore the face of the enemy, the people who took their land and slaughtered their buffalo. Akeo dismounted and helped her down, his hand firm on her arm, a public sign of protection and claim. He led her to the council fire where elders and clan leaders waited, the entire camp bearing witness. He raised his voice. "My people," he called authority, ringing clear. "I have returned, and I have not returned alone." He turned, resting his hand on Eden's shoulder. "This woman is Eden Cole. 3 winters ago, when the white man, Grant Hale, left me to die in a storm, she found me. She hid me from her own father, the sheriff. She healed me with her hands. She gave me back my life when her people would have taken my scalp." A murmur swept the crowd. "Her skin is white," Akeo continued, voice rising, "but her heart is Apache. She showed honor when none was owed. She showed courage among cowards. I went to her town not for war, but to claim the debt I owed. I made a bond with her, and that bond is complete. She comes to us not as a captive, but as my chosen wife. She is the falcon woman of my vision. She will be honored. She is the queen of my home, and you will show her the respect you show me." Respect did not come easily. In the weeks that followed, Eden felt the full weight of distrust. Women turned away. Children stared. Warriors looked through her as if she were smoke. She was alone, but she did not break. She remembered her father's endurance and drew on the quiet strength she had forged in a dark cellar. She watched. She learned the camp's rhythms, the women's work, the cadence of their language. An old woman named Isha, whose son had been killed by soldiers, watched Eden with eyes hard and unforgiving. One day, Eden saw Isha struggling with a heavy buffalo hide. Without a word, Eden picked up a scraper and worked the other side. She scraped until her hands burned and blistered, yet she did not stop. Day after day, Eden returned to the work, saying nothing. Finally, one afternoon, Isha grunted and slid a bowl of cooled berry soup toward her. It wasn't friendship, but it was recognition. It was a beginning. Her true test came a month later. A small band of dust miners, lost and starving, stumbled into the valley. Warriors closed in at once, faces painted for war. Their leader, a hard-eyed fighter named Koda, long a rival to Akeo, was ready to spill blood. "They are trespassers," Koda snarled. "They hunt the yellow metal that poisons the earth. They will die." Before Akeo could speak, Eden stepped forward. "Stop," she said in Apache. Her accent was rough, but her voice carried. She turned to the shaking men and spoke in English. "You are on Apache land. Put down your weapons. You will not be harmed." Stunned, the men let their rifles fall. Eden translated their pleas, lost, not invaders, and negotiated their release, securing a vow that they would never return to the valley. Akeo backed her decision. The miners were sent away alive, stripped of weapons, spared. That day, Eden ceased to be only the white woman. She became a peacemaker, a bridge. By preventing bloodshed, she saved Apache lives and averted the army's inevitable retaliation. She was no queen in a stone castle. She was a woman of influence beneath leather and sky. Her throne was a buffalo robe by the fire, her crown the growing respect of a proud people. Her marriage to Akeo became a true partnership. He taught her the ways of the warrior. She taught him the ways of diplomacy. Together, they carved a new path, shrewd resistance paired with even shrewder negotiation. Some nights, she missed the comforts of her former life. Some days, the cultural gulf felt impossibly wide. But then she would stand with Akeo on a bluff above the endless plains, wind lifting her hair, his hand steady in hers, and she knew she had never been more free. She was no longer just the sheriff's daughter, a bird in a gilded cage. She was Eden Cole, the falcon woman of the Apache. She had not been taken or won. She had chosen. And in that choice, within the wild heart of a nation at war with itself, she had finally come home. The story of Eden Cole and Akeo is more than a tale of the Old West. It's a testament to the truth that our deepest loyalty should be to conscience, not banners. It reminds us that courage isn't hating the enemy you're told to fear, but protecting the humanity that you discover where you least expect it. Their love wasn't only about two people finding each other. It was about two worlds colliding and shaping something new, born from a single act of mercy in a dark cellar. It proves that even in an age of conflict and prejudice, bridges are built not with wood and stone, but with bravery and love. If this journey into the heart of the West moved you, please show your support by hitting the like button. Share this story with someone who loves epic romance and frontier adventure, and subscribe for more stories that bring history to life. Thank you for listening. All stories are created for entertainment purposes and may include fictional elements or dramatized interpretations inspired by historical settings. We use AI tools, voiceover visuals, scripts as creative assistants. However, all content is reviewed, refined, and edited by humans to ensure emotional authenticity and storytelling quality. We fully comply with YouTube's policies regarding AI-generated content and do not use any deepfake techniques or misleading recreations of real individuals. All visuals and supporting materials are properly licensed. Sharing, re-uploading, modifying, or distributing any part of this content in any form requires written permission. We appreciate your support and respect for original creative work